Welcome everybody back to It Was Tuesday. For those of you here on the stream, we just went over Street Fighter 6 stuff. We went over Paul and Law I was about to say Paw and Lol. Paul and Law in Tekken 8. Their reveal trailers just came up. And now let's talk about what happened this weekend. Arc Revo World Tour happened. Really, really cool event. I got the pleasure of being a part of that. And got to commentate that alongside Sajam, Tasty Steve, and Ringe. And I've heard lots of positive stuff about the commentary. I know a lot of people were kind of upset with the team when it was first assembled, but it sounds like a lot of people are pretty happy with the job that we did. Again, it helps because all four of us are good friends and our rapport. We know each other really well, so it was very, very easy for us to, give each other times to talk and everything like that. There's just a lot of camaraderie there, and I thought it was really cool. The production was amazing. Those little intro videos that they made. Yeah, I mean, I know some people thought that they were a little cringe, but at the same time, they were kind of neat. They were kind of neat. But again, we had a great time. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed the event. I mean, hardest part, honestly, was commentating for 10 hours straight, because we basically didn't really have any off-camera breaks. But nothing that we haven't done before. And the nice thing about it is when the matches were going, only two of us were commentating. That was done on purpose. So the other two could go run and grab a burger, go use the bathroom, etc., etc., etc. So it was a lot of fun, and it was great to watch. And I really, really, really thought it was fun. I mean, again, Gundam Jehudi Kai says that DNF was maybe not as fun because it felt predictable. But yeah, but at the same time, though, I mean, I thought the matches were really cool. And the fact that we had like 9 to 10 characters represented in the top 8, I think was really, really cool. I think that's very impressive to see, especially for a game that people thought was extremely one-sided, etc., etc. Goichi winning wasn't necessarily just a Crusader thing. It's just Goichi, right? Like, Goichi coming into an event is favored to win. Like, that's just really what it comes down to. If Goichi is in an anime game, he's one of the favorites to win, and he definitely played like that, was extremely dominant, because Goichi is extremely good. But for those of you who don't watch a lot of DNF, who weren't familiar with DNF, I really do hope that when you watched it, one, we helped convey a lot of what was going on, but two, that you guys really enjoyed it, because the game is flashy, the game is fun, and the game is hectic. And again, it's the game that everybody says they want, right? The game where everybody's broken. And it's cool that way. We did not get to see, strangely enough, Nampon do a 100%, block into guard break into kill situation. Otherwise, you would have seen one of the most broken things in the game. But it does happen, and it's glorious when you're not the one having to block it. But again, the game is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it a lot, and I really hope that a lot of people out there, watched it and were like, yo, this game is actually pretty sick. And, with so much more content, coming on the horizon, that people don't feel like, it's a game that the developers aren't going to support, because clearly they're planning to support that. We'll get into that a little bit later. What's interesting about this tournament, though, from the DNF and the Strive standpoint, though, is that it really, really showed that when you're on the big screen and when you're on a stage like this, when you're at the World Finals, there is a different kind of feel to it, right? The veterans really showed up. Mochi and TY had been playing Guilty Gear forever. They got first and second place. Goichi won DNF Duel, right? All the young kids coming in here, like especially on the US side, we had Umisho, Tempest, and Nubenheimer. And between the three of them, if you add up, like on their character, on their little profile page, they listed their years playing fighting games. If you added up their years playing fighting games, it didn't even equal 5. It didn't even equal 5. I think it was like 1, 1.5, and 2. I think it was like 4.5 total. And then Mochi was like 20 years. And so, there was definitely a lot to be said about that because Tempest dropped a huge combo that would have won him a match. And afterwards we talked to him. He was like, I will be thinking about that drop combo forever. And it's just, that's the kind of thing. Like, that age and that level of experience. And sure, you could say, well, Umisho won Evo. For sure. But when Umisho won Evo, it was a situation where she had less to prove because there weren't the Japanese players there. She was fighting everybody that she's always fought. And yeah, sure enough, she fought Tempest first. Thanks, Sejam. She fought Tempest first, but Tempest has been beating Umisho a lot. And so that wasn't a surprise. That was just a good match right there. But again, these players have never had that kind of national pride on the line as well. So it was probably one of the first times they felt this kind of external pressure and, this kind of like, wow, I'm not just trying to win for myself, but I'm trying to prove to the world that US is strong in Guilty Gear. I mean, I have watched them week after week, and I think that these guys are amazing. And so, I obviously thought that they were capable of being the best in the world. That did not prove to be the case at ARC World Tour Finals. Again, I'm going to give them time. They will definitely get up there. But again, it makes me happy to say that this is probably the most competitive that US has ever been in a Guilty Gear game, especially this early on. And so we'll see what happens. I mean, Evo Japan is coming up. A lot of US players are traveling there. I definitely expect a lot of them to kind of crumble due to the time change, the jet lag, and all these other things like that, and just because that traveling for overseas experience is not going to be there. But I do expect maybe 1 or 2 to make top 8, hopefully we can see that happen, because that would be awesome to see the US players doing well over there. But again, it's going to be a crowded field because Latif is showing up, a whole bunch of EU players are going. I believe Zando is going as well, and so EU is definitely going to be throwing in the mix there. So between EU and America, I maybe expect 1 American, 1 EU player to make the top 8, if that many. But it will be very, very difficult to win on the Japan soil. So we'll see how that runs. But I will stand by the U.S. players, man. I will back them up. They definitely fell short at Arc Revo, but I expect them to use this as some learning lessons. Again, they're very young. They haven't suffered losses like this before. They haven't suffered losses where all of a sudden now everybody's talking about it like, oh my God, US is awful, kind of thing like that. And now I feel like they have a lot to prove, and hopefully that creates a lot more solidarity for them. Mochi dropped to losers in the first game. Yeah, against Nubenheimer. Dude, Nubenheimer destroyed him in the first game. And then, like I said, now in the losers bracket, I don't think Nubenheimer rose up to the occasion. I think he got nervous, and Mochi had won a bunch of matches, and Mochi was feeling good about himself, and so the moods going into those matches were very, very different, and then Mochi was able to reverse 3-0 Nubenheimer. So clearly something changed there, and I think a lot of it is just mentality. I really feel like Nubenheimer probably got a little bit nervous and kind of buckled to the pressure. And that absolutely happens. It's a scary thing being out there. A lot of people here are like, wow, I can't even imagine what it'd be like to be in that scenario. You can't even imagine like what you can't imagine is probably not enough of the pressure that it can get there, because you hear a lot of people always like, man, these veteran players, how do they get up there without being nervous? Oh, they're nervous. They're definitely nervous. And so if you are imagining that at some point in time you can get to a point where you're not nervous on stage anymore, that's not true. They're nervous, and then there's more nervous than that. And so it's crazy, dude. It is crazy how difficult it is to be in that situation and to play in that environment. So, Yeah, I mean, Japan winning on U.S. soil, but again, Mochi and TY have experience in playing in tournaments firearms. That's the main thing, right? Mochi has 20 years experience of playing in tournaments and winning fighting games. Like he has been through this for a very, very long time. The reason why I say the jet lag is going to hurt a lot of the U.S. players, because again, a lot of the U.S. players are young. I expect U.S. players like Hotashi to do really well because he's more used to traveling. And he's more used to the tournament environment. Right. So, again, Mochi hasn't traveled a lot, but he's just used to this. I'm talking about the Nubenheimers and the Umi shows and stuff like that. They will definitely be hit a lot more by that because they don't understand the strategy at all. And they just don't have that kind of experience traveling to something like that, to be honest. And then... yeah, struggle in playing in a major without the streaming cameras. Absolutely. Gobo did go 0-2, right? So clearly it wasn't just like Japan destroying everybody or anything like that. There was definitely problems there. But again, I think Gobo lost to another Japanese player in loser's bracket, if I'm not mistaken. It was because it was Gobo and Mochi had to play each other in the first round of loser's bracket. So Gobo did get eliminated by another Japanese player. So to be fair, so Gobo going 0-2 doesn't mean that he got beat by US and EU and hey, mark that as a win for us, you know. No, he got knocked into losers in the first match against who was it? It was against Skill, and then he lost to Japan, right? So there you go. Yeah, because if I remember, because Skill beat Gobo, Nubenheimer beat Mochi, and they ended up on the same side of the losers bracket, if I'm not mistaken. So there you go. But yeah, Skill played amazing, getting third place with Seoul. And again, it's so cool to see. This is what I wanted to see. Japan and Europe are very high on Seoul. And US is like really down on that character, so much to the point that when I was doing commentary on Series E one week, I was like, yeah, Soul's nerfed, but he's still pretty good. And then a whole bunch of people in chat were like, yo, Soul is useless now. He's nerfed to the ground. He's barely even playable. And then Skill and Mochi were like, no. And like US doesn't have a lot of Giovanna players. Days doesn't really play Giovanna that much anymore. I think Days moved to Bridget at this point, but Japan doesn't think much of Happy Chaos. And so it was really interesting to see all that kind of play out, because right now it definitely seems like Japan is right. However, in the Umi Show situation, Umi Show did not lose to Japan. Umi Show lost to Tempest and Zando. Umi Show, she never got to even fight any of the Japanese players. So we don't know if the Japanese players just know secrets against Happy Chaos, or they would have gotten overwhelmed by a Happy Chaos, right? We don't know. So it'll be more interesting to see what happens when Umi Show goes to Evo Japan, etc., etc. So I'm really curious how this is all going to play out. But for now, the storyline is that Japan is right so far, because clearly the characters that they thought are strong are doing well, and you know, they got first and second at the tournament here. But again, that's just one tournament. It's an invitational with 8 players. I'm really excited to see how a lot of the Western players from EU and from North America do when they finally get to Evo Japan. I think that would be really, really cool. No, Haru. What is Mochi's tier list? I would love to see that. Was this a tier list after Arc Revo, or was this a tier list before Arc Revo? Because I'm really actually curious to see what Mochi would actually list everybody at. Oh, this was after. Yeah, I'd be really, really curious. Well, the West originally thought Chip was bad when he first got nerfed, but Bean and Marvello changed a lot of people's minds. I think most people realize that Chip was strong, just not to that degree like that. So what characters are top 3? Well, if you talk to US, it's Happy Chaos, Nago, and Ram, right? It's just been those 3 characters this entire time. I'm not sure. Oh, thank you, Culture Clash Gear. Glad you're enjoying the stream. I'm really curious to see what Mochi puts on as the top three. I really would love to see that opinion of what Japan thinks right now, because obviously in Europe as well, slash May makes everybody think May is. I'm sure EU thinks May is just ignorant, still ignorant, maybe more so than before because she's gotten some buffs. And, nobody in the US really plays Mei that much. Umisho tried to pick up a little bit Mei for fighting against Chip, but again, Umisho never had the chance to go up against TY to see if she could bust out the Mei at all versus that Chip. So that never seemed to have happened. But every region had a different opinion, because even though Guilty Gear Strive is, over a year old at this point, we haven't had that cross-ocean rivalry except for EU and NA. EU and NA. And EU and NA have been very even this entire way, with NA coming out on top at Frosty Faustings, which is why I was like, yo, US is the best, right? And, it's interesting because Japan plays a very deliberate, very careful game with Guilty Gear Strive, and EU and NA play this very hectic kind of rush you down kind of style. If you watched what TY was doing with Giovanna and Chip, it was mostly just, you whiffed, I'm in. Whereas if you watch someone like Marvello or Bean play with Chip, they're just like running at you the entire time. They're doing it intelligently, but it's very offensive. What you'll see from a lot of US players like Naga will go slash, 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 RC dash forward into slash, into do all this stuff. Every time Japan uses an RC, it leads to a mix-up. Like, they specifically use the RC for ways that lead to some sort of mix-up, whereas US and EU will use the RCs for pure pressure a lot more time. It's really interesting how the play styles are very different. I thought the hectic style of NA and EU would actually overrun what Japan was doing, but their careful style really, really counteracted what a lot of NA and EU wanted to do. Like I said, the way that TY, I've always said Bean plays like a yo-yo. He goes in and out, and he's really good at it. But, that's 50% in, 50% out. Like, the way TY played Chip was literally, he just sat there and was like, I'm gonna attack. He's basically the guy's, I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. I'm not touching you. And then as soon as you swing, he punches you in the face. That's basically what he is. Roman cancel. RC is Roman cancel. Yes, for sure. Romantic. So it's really interesting to see how that all panned out. And it is really cool. And I was really glad to see it, play out like that, because now we have answers. And now we can really start the conversation here. No more potentialities anymore. Now there is stuff to prove. And going into EVO Japan, having performed the way we did at Arc Revo World Tours, I got to imagine, Arc World Tour, not Arc Revo, Arc World Tour. I got to imagine a lot of the US players are going to be grinding, studying, watching, and stuff. And this is where it starts to get exciting, in my opinion. This is where it starts to really get excited. And I think these young players, despite their inexperience, have that willpower to be able to do, because they're playing in an era where they can practice online against each other, where they have the discords for conversations and stuff like that. So I think there's going to be a lot of growth with those players there. And then going to EVO Japan will give them a lot of international experience as well. And I think I'm excited for the future of Guilty Gear Strive, because now I feel like we are playing Guilty Gear Strive. Now we've got that international, battle going. And this is where it really starts. And I'm really excited about that. Yeah, the game's really hitting its stride, weirdly enough. But not weirdly, because there was this thing called the pandemic, recently. So the fact that now we're finally getting the offline and the competition, this is where shit starts to happen. And I'm really excited about that.